Katy Perry's back. Band-aids. Let's talk about it. How y'all doing? Welcome to Let's Talk About It. Music Reviews Season 11. How y'all doing? Welcome to the show. Guys, we got a pretty good episode for you today. Katy Perry has returned to making fucking music. You know, coming off of 2024, she probably dropped some of the worst music that I've heard in a long time. I mean, there was like one song off that album that I could say that was pretty decent as you're listening to the song. But all the other songs, I mean, Lord mighty, I don't know what the fuck I was even hearing. But Katy Perry has returned to making music. You know, I was seeing this music video teased ever since Wednesday. You know, it was out Wednesday. The music video was being teased. You know, apparently all this cool destruction stuff, etc. Good shit like that. You know, I'll just be real. You know, really going into this song, you know, I wasn't really wondering what was I going to get from here from Band-aids. I'm going to say this. You know, Band-aids is definitely a song. And that's what we're going to talk about. Band-aids, you know, before I even get into the song, we don't really talk about music videos, but, you know, might as well talk about this music video because I think it is one of the main characteristics that are in this song. And I would say, as a music video, if we're not talking about the song, this is a pretty okay music video. I mean, I'd say this is a pretty decent, good music video. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, like, you know, Final, you know, Destination, or, you know, something, you know, about, you know, dying early or something like that. You know, all these different death scenes that can happen, all these different bad things that can kind of, you know, slowly accommodate and slowly get bigger and bigger and bigger as you're watching this music video. So I'd say for a music video standpoint that, alright, this really works, really cool in my opinion, hell yeah. But now, guys, let's get into the song, because I don't review music videos, and if this was a music video review, this would get a decent score. But we gotta talk about the song. You know, does the song in the background translate to the damn music video? Let's get into it. Katy Perry, Band-aids, let's talk about it. Starting off with the instrumental, the beat. This is your typical pop rock sound. You know, this is your pop rock fusion. You know, you got the drums, you got the pop drums that sound pretty okay. Then you're laced with these easy 5-second kind of, you know, pop guitar loops that just kind of replay over and over and over again. So that's definitely something, you know, I guess it's okay. You know, the guitar loops, they do their job, but I'm just going to be real, you know. They kind of start off basic, but I do like as the hook kicks in, you know, the guitars actually kick in. You know, it shows they have a little bit of a hint of personality. But I'll just be fucking real with y'all. This is a basic-ass pop rock instrumental. I mean, Lord mighty. I mean, there's no switch-ups. The drums sound the same throughout the whole entire song. The only point when there's a switch-up is when we get to the bridge, and that's when the instrumental turns off. So the instrumental turns off. In my opinion, that's not really a switch-up, alright? That's not a switch-up. That's not something to really make it sound fresh. This song kind of stays the same throughout the whole entire track. And I'm just going to be real. That's fucking basic as hell. That's kind of boring as hell. It's kind of like, what the fuck? You know? Look, I get it. Katy Perry's one of those, you know, mainstream pop artists from back in the day. But, I mean, if you're going to come back to making music, you know, at least add a little something. You know, if you're going to make a 2-minute song, you know, make a 2-minute song, but, you know, add some details to this 2-minute song, because it just feels really basic, really generic in my opinion. Now, look, there's not really much to talk about the instrumental. We'll move on now. Let's start talking about the first verse. You know, how do I feel about it? I'd say it's a decent verse. You know, I like Katy Perry's vocals. They sound pretty good. The singing's not really bad. There's none of that weird auto-tune effects that were happening in 2024. I don't know if she was trying to do like an electronic thing or something. But, you know, the way she was putting the auto-tune on her voice, it was just sounding horrible to listen to, in my opinion. This is actually coming back to more form, you know, actually showing out more of your music goddamn ability, which is pretty cool in my opinion. You know, I'm glad we got that, etc. And I will be real, you know, the song, as we get into the verse, as the verse keeps moving on, I'd say it's a decent verse. It gets the job done. Nothing crazy. I like it. Sounds good. Now let's move on to that hook. That hook, I'm going to say this. Look, I do not really like the scream singing hook. I'm going to just be honest with y'all. Y'all know, going into this song, I wasn't really enjoying the scream singing hook. It didn't sound that good in my opinion. It didn't have a lot to it when I'm listening to the track. And I'll just be fucking real, I think I've heard better rock, pop singing hooks. This is just okay. This just gets the goddamn job done. The fucking same 5-second loop of this hook just kind of repeats over and over and over again. Now, the one thing I will say is that I like that flow switch. There is a mid-flow switch on this hook, but I really don't like the vocal style that's being used here. It's just kind of that scream, singy song, and I think it just gets the job done, and it's just kind of okay. I think this hook could be a lot better. There could be a switch up. There could be something vocally that switches up. There could be something to it that makes it goddamn stand out. What's making it fucking stand out is that this shit is boring as hell. Now, there is a bridge. So I guess I could say that. There actually is a bridge. The bridge is okay. Sounds pretty good. I was kind of, like, okay, is Katy Perry actually going to do a bridge? She actually does do a bridge, and I'd say it gets the job done. Sounds pretty good. I like how she does that slight vocal runoff at the end, kind of just showcases that, hey, Katy Perry still got it. Well, Katy Perry can still sing a little bit, etc. It's nothing too bad or whatever when you're listening to the track. So I think that's pretty good. But I'll just say overall, you got a pretty decent bridge, but you have a hook that just kind of doesn't really stand out when I'm listening to the track. So, overall, guys, when I talk about this song, we talk about Katy Perry, Band-Aids. I'm going to say overall, the beginning verse is pretty okay. It gets the job done. Hook is a little too basic for me. I don't like the scream singing hook. I feel like it could be a lot better when I'm listening to the track, in my opinion. And then overall, I'm going to say that, that bridge was pretty decent. That bridge gets the job done. But that's kind of it. I think Katy Perry Band-Aids is a decent song to come back to. But this one is just kind of basic. This one just kind of gets the job done. And honestly, for this supposed to be some big old pop comeback, I've heard better pop comeback songs. I think, it's not really. So, overall, Katy Perry Band-Aids is going to get a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10. What'd y'all think about it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? I don't know. Let me know. And if you're on YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, wherever you get your podcast at, make sure you follow. Turn on notifications, guys. We're dropping new content every single day. And honestly, I didn't really care too much about the new Katy Perry comeback. But hey, she might have another song that sounds better. Might do a different type of song that sounds okay. This one is just kind of basic. Anyways, guys, I'll see y'all later. You have a good one. Yeah, guys. Bye.